Saying it's 5 o'clock.
Yeah, no, my thing was ringing, I'm
I'll
sorry.
let you shut that down.
Yes, sir.
As you may recall, we recessed the Friday budget meeting to today at 3 o'clock, and then it was changed to 5 o'clock. So I'm calling the meeting back into order. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Ham,
Here.
Councilmember Jones,
Here.
Councilmember Broadway,
Here.
Councilmember Polak,
Present.
Councilmember Matthews,
Present.
Councilmember Aycock.
Here. Okay, we're all here. So we're going to resume the FY22 budget discussions, and I'll start off with Manager Tim Salmon.
Yes, sir. Brad, can you pull up the presentation for me? I put together a few slides to reiterate some issues and concerns. Okay, next slide, Brad. Just got the controller. Somebody got it? As of the end of our last meeting, we had general concurrence from a majority of the council members who agreed with the first three items, that we would use a portion of the ARP for the provision of services, a loan for essential vehicles, and raising the property tax 3 cents. However, the last issue, the utility rate increase of 15% was split. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about that and address that issue first. Next slide. I guess I got it. There we go. So there was some discussion about ARP considerations, the use of Wayne County's American Rescue Plan, which has been identified at roughly $24 million to address some of the city's infrastructure concerns. I think the county may address their Genoa wastewater system concerns with that funding, but there's been no indication that they would use any of those funds to fix Goldsboro's public utility concerns. The North Carolina governor put out a statement on how he recommended American Rescue Plan funds, roughly $800 million, be used as grants. Of that, $440 million would be used for distressed and at-risk local governments. And I put in parentheses behind that the number of governments that are involved: 118 distressed, 120 at-risk. And for those governments, no match to fix their systems would be required. And if they regionalize some of those projects, that would be no match as well. And when I talk about a match, you can see the line below that, 75-25 would be for at-risk governments. In other words, the state would provide 20 or 75% of the funding for that project, and the city would have to provide 25%. Governments which fall in those categories would be like Eureka and Pikeville for distress, where the LGC has control of their spending and their funds, and at risk might be more like Fremont or Mount Olive. They recommended $360 million for governments statewide. Goldsboro's in this category. So in that category, you could expect a 50% match. And if we want to leverage these ARP funds, we will likely need to raise our rates to do so. This slide has been previously presented. It was initially, you might remember Mike Wagner talked about a 20% rate increase in order to have the funding we needed for infrastructure. And you can see in the out years, it's roughly averaging 10% per year after that on top of the 20% increase. So 20, 10, 10, 10, et cetera. You know, minus any significant ARP investment, we've got a lot of work to do. You can see the fund balance, the upper left graph stays fairly healthy, and the middle upper graph, our cash out is somewhat equal to cash in, preserving fund balance. The next slide, the 15% rate increase I asked Mike to do after we talked about what we could do with the American Rescue Plan that the city had come into it. Out of the $8.8 million, we previously discussed two projects for $8.1 million that in FY22 could reduce our rate increase. Note that in the out years, you still have significant rate increases. If we were to do nothing this year, you can see in FY '23, your fund balance goes negative. And that's assuming we continue to buy the capital improvement projects we need, which is about 2.7 million over the next year. And then those other projects that I'm going to get to in a second. This is a specific amount that was in Catherine's slides. We would lose almost 2.5 million in the next budget cycle without a rate increase. You may recall that over the last 10 years, we hadn't had a rate increase, except for 17, there's a 2% rate increase. And in the previous year, when we talked about the FY '21 budget, we talked about a 25% rate increase that was eventually settled on at 17.5%. Right now, this slide depicts where we're at with our rates. FY '21, you can see, is about $68 for 5,000 gallons, or basically a month's use for the average family or household. And if we went to a 15% rate increase, you'd still see that we are below the average for Eastern North Carolina cities that were benchmarked here. These are the specific numbers. This is a list of projects that have already been approved or done that we're paying debt on. So I would note on the top you have sewer and streets in 2011, sewer and streets from 2013. Those were general obligation bonds. State revolving loans, you've got water plant phase 1, phase 2, Stony Creek sewer project. What you see in blue there is the most recently completed projects at plate settlers and phase 4 sewer. The gravity sewer below that and the water lines and booster pumps below that have been previously approved by council. And you can see in the far right category there, across that row, that is basically $4.85 million is going to have to start being paid off in FY '21-22. And the projects below that we've talked about previously, 2019 water improvements, 2-inch galvanized water lines, and Little Cherry, Big Cherry, those projects have yet to be approved, but we do have some funding lined up from the state that are loans, a 2% interest rate loan, or a 0.02% interest rate loan with the ASADRA grant, if I recall correctly. But those are loans, those aren't grants, and we're going to need to be paid back. The next slide is the FY '22 capital improvement plan that we will have to make cuts to if we don't get the recommended 15% rate increase. You'll notice on the right it's a little small text, but the far left column of the numbers is a 15% rate increase, and those are the things that get funded. If you go with a 10% rate increase, what's lined out in red would no longer be affordable, and if you went with a 5% increase, it applies the same. So with a 5% rate increase, one of the things that survives is the utility plan, master plan, for almost $500,000 that we really have to do to understand what our requirements are. And that's the extent of the information I wanted to update you all on, pending your decision. We need to really get a decision on this today so that Catherine can appropriately do the budget ordinance and have it ready for discussion on Monday night.
Okay, I'll ask council if there are any questions that they have of Mr. Salmon or anyone else here concerning this matter.
I don't have any, go ahead.
No, ma'am, you go ahead.
Okay. I don't have any questions, but I do want to reach out over the weekend. I did a lot of research, trying to make sure that we do the best thing for the city and for our constituents. And so I want to make sure that I say everything I need to say, so I've written it down. To the constituents of District 1 and the entire city of Goldsboro, as a member of this city council, is an honor and a civic duty to me. I take pride in the fiduciary responsibilities of guiding multi-million-dollar funds and services from numerous sources that have multiple layers and rules and regulation. It is my intent to make sure at the end of the day that I, Hiawatha Jones, council member, of District 1 hold true to being a steward of the public trust in every decision and vote that I make, regardless of popular special interest groups. I'm aware of the current state of Goldsboro's financial and infrastructure needs. I do not look to point any fingers, nor have I in the past, but I am equally aware of the current hardship and plaguing of our marginalized citizens due to the pandemic. A pandemic that has impacted the city's finances and growth negatively as well. Thanks to our current federal administration and the launch of the American Rescue Plan's Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Program on May 10, 2021, the Community Development Block Grant, cities in North Carolina will be able to request funding directly from the U.S. Treasury. Goldsboro is one of those 26 cities that we can request funding directly from the U.S. Treasury as indicated in the North Carolina League of Municipalities of the U.S. Treasury. And I provided a packet that I would like for you to look at. We need to use every tool that we have to make sure that we work for our citizens and the city. In this packet, it will show you that the city of Goldsboro is officially estimated to receive $8.8 million, as shown by the North Carolina League of Municipalities spreadsheet released by the congressional staff on March 8, 2021. It should be stated that the official estimate amounts are expected to be relatively accurate. Each city or town funding will be provided from a nationwide pot from the U.S. Treasury. But again, based on the guidance and provided by the North Carolina League of Municipalities, the ARP plan will provide funding directly to CDBG designated cities, and Goldsboro is one. The U.S. Treasury has revised the deadline for obligating funds for 2020-14 and expanding funds to 2026 from the American Rescue Plan program. If you look within your packet at the North Carolina League of Municipalities Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Interim Rules Summary Document on page 5, it speaks more to how the funds can be used toward water and sewer infrastructure. This should give Goldsboro some breathing room on our decision making with regards to the proposed 15% water and sewage tax increase and to the ARP funds to ensure that we can put the highest and best use of critical water and sewer infrastructure. It has been stated that the local governments will never see this level of federal funding again. And with Goldsboro's current financial and infrastructure needs, we have an opportunity to utilize the ARP to address these critical needs and be more strategic by delaying the implementation of this 15% water and sewer tax increase for at least another year, to give the marginalized citizens that's plagued with this handicap due to pandemic more time to recover. The federal administration has done the same. I am asking my fellow council members to please utilize available tools within our toolbox, such as the ARP, and to delay the 15% water and sewage tax increase for at least another year. Please, we have available tools to address our critical water and sewer infrastructure for this current budget. I would also like to request our staff to take this information and seek consultation from the North Carolina League of Municipalities and the U.S. Treasury, and to bring further detailed strategies. A strategy plan with an itemized budget outlining the critical water and sewer infrastructure needs and how the ARP can address it. The ARP funds will be distributed in 2 tranches, and you have that in your packet too. 50% Goldsboro, 4.4 million, delivered no later than 60 days from the enactment date, and the remainder, 4.4 million, delivered no later than 1 year. I want to thank the staff and the city manager and Catherine and everybody that has worked so hard on this budget. But I really want us to use every tool that we have so that our citizens won't be taxed this year and that we can work forward to next year. And that's all I have to say on the budget. And thank you.
With that, Councilwoman Jones, I'd like for the city manager to make a comment about that.
So we've presented that information before, ma'am. We are gonna get the 8.8 million, half of which comes in a tranche that is already available to us, and as you said, no later than a year later, we should get the other half. So part of that 8.8 million is what I discussed earlier tonight. When we went from a 20% rate increase to a 15% rate increase, that was assuming that 8.1 million of that would be applied to the 2 projects that I mentioned. I think it was $5.2 million for the phase 3 sewer and another $3 million for the 19-inch water line. So 8.2 million of the 8.8 available. The other 600,000 can be used as we see fit. But that's already baked into these numbers. Now, is it possible to use the other 2.7 we have left over this FY if we spend 1.7 million for provision of services that we already agreed to? The other 2.7 of the 4.4 could be spent buying down basically the utility work that is projected in this last slide here. Okay, if you look, that's about $2.7 million worth of work. But you are continuing to push the problem set off another year, and you won't get the income, the revenue that you need to pay for some of those projects where we could do a 50% match. Now, will the city potentially be considered at risk in the future if we don't make decisions like it's proposed? That could be possible, and maybe then we have a 25% match instead of a 50% match. And if that's what council would like to do, that is a consideration.
I want to go back to Mr. Salmon's presentation and look at the 4th page from the back, in which it says rate history. If you look at fiscal year 8, 9, 10, and 11, if you add those 4 years up, 4 consecutive years, it was a 50% rate increase. They saw, because 07 they had no rate increase, they saw the problem then and decided to try to solve it. Now then, in the next, 8 years, there was no rate increase. So, they put a Band-Aid on, and now we're going to have to pull that Band-Aid off and put a full bandage on. And I appreciate what you said, Councilwoman Jones, and I appreciate you going to the trouble to doing this. But, like I told y'all last time, over the last 10 years, we were never made aware of the dire straits that the Water and Sewer and Utility Fund was in. We were told every meeting when we had budget, oh, the utility fund's fine. Am I correct, Councilman Broadway?
Absolutely.
And, you know, when actually it was being depleted. Now, we've done a lot of utility work over the last 4 years. If you notice all the patches in the streets and all that, you know, this is water and sewer line improvements. But if a company were to look at Goldsboro to expand right now, if they were any size at all, they would not choose Goldsboro because we don't have the sewer capacity. You know, this is not anything we can any longer put a Band-Aid on. And while I understand it's a hardship on many people, you know, I'd like to see us possibly come up after the budget is approved with a way that we can help the elderly. You know, saying when they reach age 70, they get a 25% rate decrease. That would help. But we can't kick it anymore. We've kicked that can all we can kick it. And I'm looking at the present, but I'm also looking at the future of Goldsboro. And the future is where we've got to look at right now, because Goldsboro and Wayne County is on the decline still. And we got to start building up. Now, Johnston County, you know, of course, they're so close, well, they're next door to Wake County, and they're going, you know, they're getting new industry and everything else. It's going to work its way to Goldsboro. It may be 5 years, it may be more. But also, when 795 is approved, which is from Ash Street all the way to I-40, and it's not in the budget, but it is in the design stage. I know that because I'm on the Transportation Committee. And once that gets passed, you know, Goldsboro is going to profit greatly from it. But we've got to have the infrastructure in place when Goldsboro starts growing like we would like to see it grow. And that's about all I have to say.
Sorry.
Mr. Jones, I really appreciate your remarks and all your research. You did a ton of research here, and I appreciate it. But there's one word that Catherine said that scares me to death. And when she said insolvency in FY23 is a scary, scary word. Because once a government entity goes into insolvency in any of their firms and correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine, then we go into a, quote, distressed category. And it also kills our bond rating when we're there. And I can promise you from all my years in the military and banking that waiting for the federal government and the state to give you funds is not a good way, not a good tactic. There's everybody else out there in front, and I think the city manager showed that. And I know it's hard, and I appreciate this raise that we've got on people, and I think we can do things through CDBG funds. We can help people. We're helping people now. But now we must start in order to get our work engineered and get it planned. Now, Councilman Polark and I saw John Bell sit right here in front of us and tell us that money's coming. And he said that. But he said you've also got to show intent and purpose yourselves that you're willing to help yourselves. And I think it's important that they know that. There's money coming. John Bell said it right there. But we have got to show that we are on our way and willing to pay that price. So I don't know how we can not do it. And I think we're asking.
I understand, you know, what John Bell said. But if we use, the remainder of the money from the ARP fund, which would be showing that we are doing something, and put strategies in place and delay this 15%, that's still showing that we're doing something and that we're concerned about the city and our people.
I'd like to continue, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem, no problem.
Redeem your time, sir, I'm sorry.
And I agree with what you're saying. But what, the thing, insolvency, we have got to, we cannot afford that to happen. And then the last thing I'm gonna say, anything that could possibly affect our ability to supply water and sewer in the right amounts, in the right times, that this base is detrimental to this city and this county. We're asking for trouble. And so, I appreciate what you're saying, but I think we've got to start now and start doing something now. And that's all I have. And I'm sorry I didn't.
No problem.
I just want to say, in reference to what Councilman Aycock said about the Band-Aid analogy, you're still putting the Band-Aid on the gunshot wound. I don't know when the epiphany came about, whereas now we have projections of the next 15 or 20 years. I know you said no one was informed or knew the status, and we can't kick a dead horse, that's the past. But looking at the chart, with or without the 15%, I think the general public is unaware that even if we pass this, which I'm not in favor of, for the next 3 years, there's an incremental 10% on top of this. So whereas people are saying we're paying 17.5 now, we're asking for 15 and a half now. Next year it's going to be another 10. The following year another 10. The following year another 10. The following year another 8. The following year another 7.5. We're almost up to $200 a month. Okay? And we did take a gamble years back when I was a firefighter, when we thought we were going to annex into Belfast, which we took a hit on that. We provided water lines to a community that we no longer even have. Okay? We have communities within the city of Goldsboro where my mother-in-law lives, where roads have not been excavated, where you can't even flush a toilet without flushing it 2 or 3 times. But yet we took a gamble on expansion in a subdivision. I was a part of that process. We did tested hydrants and everything. We never came into that area. Okay, we spoke on bond rating. Well, due to a delayed audit, we lost the bond rating anyway. Am I correct?
You lost one. from
Okay.
Moody's. You still have Standard & Poor's.
Okay, so I understand what everybody's saying. But looking at this chart, and I calculate, people are not, and I understand what Ms. Jones said about the medication. I looked at this thing, and I was looking at it just from a city standpoint. When I estimated all the figures collectively, the city, the county, which we pay double tax in the city, we don't reap any, per se, I don't think, benefits that the county utilizes our facilities and don't pay a double tax as we do. People come from the county and use our services. That's neither here nor there. That's always been the case. But I just look at it holistically and I say, you know, I just want to exhaust all resources. If we can go 6 months, I look at the chart. It says, you know, I see you say 2023, but on this chart, and I don't want any money to be lost. I mean, I understand we want companies to come, and the trend is coming. Everything's coming this way anyway. Amazon is coming. Apple Store is coming. There's not enough room in Knightdale. Everything's coming south. I do foresee those agencies and things are coming this way, and I understand infrastructure is needed, water is needed, but I'm just looking at this projection, and it's just like, wow. Now we have a vision. Last year, I mean, we have a vision now. I mean, I wasn't in this seat 10 years ago, but I knew as a fireman, and I wasn't even involved in politics, that water plant was built in the 40s. I knew then that there needed to be some type of questions to be asked of how are we going to replace this. I mean, for crying out loud, there were terracotta pipes being excavated in some parts of Goldsboro. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's what flower pots are made out of. Cast iron in some areas. And I'm sad to say what may be in the north end of Goldsboro, because that's where my mother-in-law lives, on Virginia Street. And that area, I'm telling you, there's not even cuts. And I mean, I hate to say the roads are good over there, but they're good because the roads haven't been cut. No pipes have been, nothing's been done. I mean, I hate to say where I live, the roads are like Frankenstein in patches, but there's been a lot of work done towards downtown. But those people in those areas are being tasked with flushing toilets, with low water pressures, and they're still having a water rate increase. And I just, like I said, I've received a lot of phone calls. I've received a lot of hate calls. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is the fact that these people in these areas, in these communities, and a lot of people don't know what the projections are for the next, like I said, 2023, 10%. 2024, another 10%. 2025, another 10%. We're going to be up to 100% before it's over. So I just want people to know that, and like I said, not trying to sound like a hero and not trying to kick anybody in front and throw anybody in front of the bus, but I mean, coming into this office, we knew, a lot of us, I did, what we were going to face. Not to this extreme per se, not realizing Corona was going to come. We got sworn in December. Literally 4 months later, Corona came. That's never happened. But I just want people to be conscious and cognizant of what's happening, and that's all I have.
Ms. Matthews, you have any comments?
So I do want to echo what Councilwoman Jones and Councilman Polak said. I am opposed to the water rate increase. I was opposed to it last year when it was proposed. I sat in some of those same seats that our audience is sitting in now, and I knew that there was a problem with the water. It's not a new issue. My thing is, as I was going through this budget, touching every single page, reading every single line, and I can't not remember what one of our residents said in terms of needs versus wants. And I'm looking at some of our departments, and I'm looking at some of the purchases, and I'm looking at some of the projected purchases and different things like that. And to me, it seems like we're still frivolous spending. I understand we want to, the cost of living and adjustments and all of those things, I understand it. I'm looking at cell phone stipends and car allowances and all of these things. I can't help but look at the golf course and see what it's doing. And while I'm talking about the golf course, I did ask, because there was a statement made about membership and who actually utilizes that golf course. So, City Manager, do you have that information? I asked you about the membership.
Yes, I sent that to council members. And if I recall correctly, there are about 140 members of the course, and 75% have a Goldsboro zip code.
Okay. My concern is, if you look on this chart, and I don't know well, I guess we can look at it right here. With the 15, even if you look at the 20, we are still proposing the same rate increase every year. So I'm concerned, because if we're at 20%, that's more. So why would we still increase it at the same amount we would at the 15%? And last year, a water bill relief policy came across the desk of the council, and it was immediately dismissed. I was told it couldn't be done. And I was also told we try to find ways of how we could do it, and that never happened. So that's another concern that I have. We increase our residents' water, we run their bills up, and we offer them no support. That's something that we have to consider. Hardships. We talk about increasing our city workers and city employees' salaries, and I'm not saying they don't deserve it. Please don't misunderstand. But when I hear residents who are battling stage 4 breast cancer, who are traveling back and forth to DC, spending more time out of their homes than they are in it, and they're still required to pay the same amount, is disheartening to me. And that may be just one isolated incident, but that one I know about in particular because it's happening within my district. It's happening up the street from me. So I don't believe that the city has done all it could in terms of cutting. And I know that's a horrible word. Nobody wants to hear it. But I was told we was going to have to make some tough decisions. I was told that tough decisions were made. And I'm saying maybe we have to make tougher decisions. I think our people deserve it, you know. Nobody wants to talk about what happened and when it happened, but it's necessary to remember the past so we don't repeat it. It's necessary to identify where we went wrong so we don't repeat it. So in my heart, I cannot agree to this rate increase. I'm scared that we agree to this and then next year to be something different, and then we have to play this game all over again. So those are my things. As I was just looking through the budget, I saw some areas that we could cut without even blinking, but it's things that the city wants. We just entered into a contract with the fellowship. And when I was in college, I did fellowship programs. I did 3. So I understand their benefit. But we went into that already dealing with some money issues, and we obligated ourselves to that. You know, I mean, it's something we can brag about. It's something somebody can look at the city and say, oh, that's nice. But we got money issues, and those are just things that I don't see us being good stewards over our funding at this time. It's not to say we can never do it. I'm just saying, what if we just took this year to say, we have to cut back on training, we have to cut back on concession, we have to cut back on all of this huge dollar amount for stuff to go into our shop that we don't even know we're going to sell at the golf course. I don't mean to be targeting the golf course. It's just happened to be on my page right now. So that's what I would like to see. I would like to see the city, you know, do some more cut into some of those things that we don't necessarily have to have this year, to see if it helps. That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Okay. Let me say that since last Friday, even before Friday for that matter, but since last Friday, I've gotten multiple phone calls of people expressing their opinions about all 4 of these, but especially since we didn't finalize the water increase issue, that one specifically. I've had literally people stop by my house when I was out in the yard, a complete stranger, and offer their comment. I had people yesterday at church talk to me about it. So this is an item that is very much on the minds of people. And I go back to the comments that, let me back up a second. In the last month, Manager Simon and I have attended a number of meetings with the county, the LGC, and others, talking about our overall sewer and water issues in the county. And the fact that Goldsboro services Eureka, Pikeville, Fremont, and sewage. And we also talked about the issues that system has, not only in the capacity, but in the state of the system. And I think, as Councilman Pollock said, this is not just a Goldsboro issue. It's a regional issue here. But Goldsboro is the big dog in the county here in terms of providing the most water sewage system services. Councilman Pollock is certainly correct in that Goldsboro can grow with the right infrastructure and other resources. But it's very clear from talking to people that know a lot more about the economic situation than I do and the growth patterns, that we will be hampered severely by any potential growth, both industry and residential, and commercial for that matter, if we cannot provide those two basic services. Now, I've heard 5 people speak here. 2 are for it, 3 of those 5 are against it. So, I'm for it. And therein lies the dilemma. We have a 3-3, and without a majority, we don't have an increase. Am I correct?
Correct. We would have to go back and see if we could get a 4th vote at some rate of increase or not. Perhaps it's worth going through some other cuts that council members have in mind. I know Councilwoman Matthews mentioned a few, and see what that adds up to. Because if it adds up to 200,000, it doesn't get you close. I mean, the operations and training cuts, I cut back to similar levels of last year, which were cut 25 to 30% from the year before. Pretty soon you can't train your people and you can't operate correctly. Pretty soon you have to cut back people, which we've already done. We haven't cut back the total authorized positions, but as I mentioned at the last meeting, there are over 40 empty positions right now, which is probably 8% of your force or your city employees. There's not much more cutting to be done without affecting something significantly, but we can go through it as council would like.
So does anyone else have anything to say about the water rate increase?
I've got a question. Councilwoman Jones, Councilman Polak, and Councilwoman Matthews, would you be opposed to any rate increase? Here, no comment, I guess you would be, so.
I have a question, and this may kind of help answer that question you just asked. With the number 1, when we're talking about, not on this page, on the actual using a portion of ARP 1.7 million, was I right in understanding that goes to public safety? That's fire and police, correct?
Correct. It can go into different types of operations, but provision of services in general. But it would be easiest to explain the police and fire department. For instance, if that money weren't there, you could cut that out of their budgets and you wouldn't be able to afford as many firemen or policemen.
Okay, the reason I asked, we were talking about training. Could that money be utilized for training in those 2 departments? For those, for training within?
It goes to the existing budget as it is right now.
Okay.
So if you don't use that 1.7 for that, and let's say you put it into infrastructure, then we're going to have to cut training and people and operations.
What was the complete cost for the project again?
Which one?
The water system project? It's in this, I'm looking.
Let me show you a slide here. So this slide shows you, for instance, we mentioned in the past the 2019 water system improvement 2-inch galvanized lines, a $3 million project. That was one of the ones I talked about previously with the American Rescue Plan in May. There was another phase 3 sewer project for $5.2 million, and that would have replaced sewer lines throughout the city, most of which centers around downtown. Mike, did you have anything you could add to that?
phase 3 sewer rehab focuses more on the northern part of the city. It was more out the Pigtown Road area, working on that
Could I ask a question of Mike? Mike, I have a question, and we're just now going into the hurricane season. And of the things you need, the thing that jumped out on me is that generator we need and that switch.
Yes, sir.
If you were prioritizing the very things that we absolutely have to have, even if we get a small hurricane, if there is such a thing, could you prioritize exactly at what level? I'm thinking 650,000 for a generator. I don't know what the switch would be, or you know, the absolute things to protect us right now, so that we don't go dead from power and sewer and everything, should we get even a moderate hurricane.
So, I don't know if you're able to see this slide or not, but I was asked to make cuts up to 5%. And so there's 2 automatic transfer switches that involve the water treatment plant, one at the water treatment plant and one at the News River pump station. Those are still in there at a 5% rate increase. But you know, what I can tell you is we've been blessed during the last 2 hurricanes. We had no boil water notices, no loss of pressure, when our surrounding communities were all in that situation. All it takes is one 16-inch line to shift from the groundwater level, and we're in dire straits pretty fast. We're shutting the plant down, and we're buying water from the Wayne Water Districts at that point in time. You know, part of our mutual aid agreement allows us to purchase up to 6 million gallons per day from the Wayne Water Districts. And if we have a system-wide boil water notice and they're still able to provide us water, or even in, you know, different sections of the city where we can valve things off and isolate, that's really what we'd have to do.
So the 5% would.
It still includes those generator transfer switches, yes.
Is that the most important thing to help us now? I'm just asking the question.
To protect employees and ensure there's power in an event, yes. I mean, I can go through that list though and prioritize. You know, I mean, everything has its own specific need for it. You know, part of that utility master plan is how do we get the water plant from the 1950s out of the floodplain? You know, and build new so we can deal with, you know, emerging contaminants. And those
Mike,
things.
it might be worth you running through each one of those line items just briefly to describe the type of work that you need to do right now.
So
I don't know if council wants to hear that or not.
yeah, so I did touch on this during our last meeting of what we would get for that 15%. So the first item there is the generator transfer switch that's currently at the water treatment plant. We have an emergency generator and then a backup generator for that. The switch gear in the backup generator failed. It actually got stuck in between emergency power and commercial power. So we actually didn't have power to the water plant for around 4 hours. And so currently the generator is in perfect working condition. However, there's no way to transfer power in the event of a loss of power. Clear well number 2, that was identified as having cracks within the clear well. If you're looking at an aerial photo, that's the big gray 2.5 million gallon of potable water tank when you pull into the plant. You know, the recommendation was to seal, to go in there, inject composite, you know, into those cracks to help with any water loss in there. The effluent flow meters. Currently have older analog flow meters that record the flow leaving the water plant through the 16, 20-inch lines that go out into the distribution system. They're, you know, we need some newer technology, more accuracy for reporting, and so it's time, you know, it's time to replace those. concrete for the flood barriers. We have a certain amount of flood barriers on hand, and what we need is about a 2-foot concrete strip that goes around that area, so that my staff can set up on a level place those flood barriers. We already cut the additional requested flood barriers around the generators. We still have the berm up from Hurricane Florence. We already cut those out of the budget and the concrete work for that. The Neuse River Pump Station automatic transfer switch. That's the big one, which I think you alluded to. That is on the Neuse River by our pre-sedimentation basin that holds 35 million gallons of readily available water. That station pulls water from the river and then takes that water and pushes it to the water plant. So on multiple occasions during these storms and even just a regular power outage, that switch has become unreliable and not transferred properly. During the hurricanes, we've had to get assistance from the fire department and the police department to either drive us out there or take us out there by boat. But in those other situations, thunderstorm events, when lightning's cracking, it's my staff that's outside in the elements, opening up 480 volts in the rain to try to get that power to that facility. So we really want something reliable. The organic carbon analyzer, I think I mentioned, we got a letter from the manufacturer, said they've discontinued parts and services for that. It's just an older analyzer, so it's time to replace that for the laboratory. We analyze TOC every single day at the plant. The Ford Escape, that Ford Ranger, I think, has somewhere around 125,000 miles on it. The vehicle's 16 years old. We use that vehicle, 5 days a week to pull over 100, distribution samples monthly to make sure the water quality is good throughout the entire system. The master plan, we've talked about that several times. The water reclamation facility, so the phase 3 telemetry. I'm waiting on what radios to purchase. In 2017, we received a letter that the radios that we had in 40 locations are obsolete. They're not making them anymore. They're not making any parts. So what the telemetry system does is it gives us remote monitoring of our 26 pump stations, the Neuse River pump station, some of our flow meters and stuff. If I don't have working telemetry at a pump station, I have to send somebody there every day to check that station. So if I don't have that, then I've got to pay overtime. Most recently, we've had several situations. So during the radio propaganda study, we found out that we're not going to be able to use radios in the future. Some of them are going to have to go to cellular. We've moved forward with that, but we need to purchase the radios and program those in this next budget cycle. We've had a couple fail. We've had some power outages recently in the middle of the night, and we did not get called out by some of those pump stations. So we're potential to have a sanitary sewer overflow, which we don't want. The Westbrook pump station generator, that generator's over 25 years old. We talked about that last time a little bit in depth, that's our master pump station generator. So we need to replace that before it fails. The New Hope pump station bar screen. So we don't have a newer headworks at the water reclamation facility. So your headworks is where the water comes in. You traditionally would have grit removal and you would have bar screens at the facility. We don't have that. It's old, from the 1980s. So we have 4 bar screens out in our system, 5 bar screens. There's one at Westbrook Pump Station, 117 Pump Station, Big Cherry Pump Station, Little Cherry Pump Station, New Hope Pump Station, and then actually 6 at our Pecan Pump Station. So those were all due to be replaced. What they do is they take anything, the gap in the bar screen is about 3/16 of an inch or half an inch, and it rakes out the debris, rags. We've seen all kinds of stuff come in there. Footballs, anything that goes into the sanitary sewer system. It's trying to remove it to protect your pumps. So last year, actually it was May of last year, the bar screen at the 117 pump station failed. It cost me around $25,000 to fix that bar screen from the 1960s. And in addition to that, it tore up the shaft and impeller and motor in our pump number 3. It cost me $25,000 to fix that pump, but it took 6 months to fix that pump because that's how far out the materials have to get ordered. So that pump was offline for over 6 months. And had that bar screen been working properly, we wouldn't have been in that situation. An aerator at the water reclamation facility, we have 4 giant aerators. They're motors, big mixer with an impeller on there. They're to stir everything up and get it mixed, start the oxidation process with the biological treatment. So those old aerators they just need rebuilt. And to rebuild them is, unfortunately, a cost of $120,000. So to do one a year for the next 4 years would be the plan. The wasting valves at the plant, they're 40 years old, from the 1980s. It's a confined space, 15, 20 feet down into the ground. So the cost to replace those valves, they're failing, the operator's having trouble opening, is $95,000. We have a bulk chemical tank. It's past its working life expectancy. It's out there in the, we don't have covered chemical storage like some facilities do, so it's out there in the elements. It's past its working life expectancy. We'd hate to have it rupture or fail and lose, you lose that chemical. You still have to purchase a new tank. The lab distillation unit, again, that we use distilled water at both facilities, but that unit at the WRF lab is 14 years old. The Ford Ranger would replace 2007 Yaris, and Ford Escape would replace the industrial pretreatment vehicle. Currently, the industrial pretreatment coordinator drives around in a Yaris hatchback that, he's got all his industrial samples in there. He's got the odors and smells in there with him. We just need to try to get him a better vehicle.
I have a question for you. All these things are critical for the operation of water and sewage. Generators in particular. If a generator goes out, I know you don't have one sitting here in Goldsboro at some industrial supply place. How long will it take you to get it and install it and the system be down?
So we do have 3 smaller portable generators. They can't run our 117 Westbrook pump station, but those smaller generators can run the rest of our pump stations. But if we had a large generator go down and an extended loss of power, some of our, I'm drawing blanks on some of the names here, but Caterpillar is not that far away. They have got big, especially once we get into hurricane season and stuff like that. They're going to have things more readily available.
About Raleigh or someplace like that?
Yes, sir.
Well, I remember when Thompson Pump saved us 1 year.
Jerry Pearson for Pearson Pumps in the
Pumps,
city. He took his boat out to these pump stations at 2 o'clock in the morning to keep them operational, to fuel these pump stations.
I remember when he did that.
Not included in there is the UV system. That got, several things got cut prior to this. The UV system at just over $1 million. It's over 20 years old. Kind of stated how we've already dumped a whole bunch of money into that. Some other things, an equipment shelter that needs to be replaced. It's just time for it to be replaced. That got deferred. That can wait. When we went from that 25% request last year to 17.5%, a lot of this stuff got cut. And so this stuff doesn't go away. It just gets rolled into the next year. And that's kind of the situation we're in is this stuff keeps rolling over. So I know that it was brought up earlier, why do the rate projections look similar with the 20% and the 15%? And that's because of the 2-inch galvanized pipe replacement. That $3 million project, if that was paid with the ARP funds, would take that project off the books for us. That has nothing to do with the next 10 years. The rates that will affect the next 10 years are your decisions you make today, and then any grant funding that we can get, any of the free money. So we're in a totally different situation than we were 18 months ago. Because 18 months ago, what I was told by the Department of Water Infrastructure was there was going to be no more money. There's no more grants, right? If you own a system, you need to operate and maintain your system. You need to charge rates that are possible. and then COVID hit. And like Ms. Jones mentioned, we have generational money that's up for grabs right now. And I think what the city manager alluded to is we need to make ourselves in the best position possible to get that money. And I've talked before about one of the reasons that we didn't receive grants. And there's a section in there that's called system management. System management looks at three things. Do you have an asset and inventory assessment? Have you done that on your water and sewer system? What is the condition? What do you have? What is the condition? And how are you going to replace it? Or what is its life expectancy? The second thing is your rates. Do you charge enough money to operate and maintain your system? And the third thing is do you have a capital improvement plan? So if you probably don't remember, but last August I came to you when I was applying for one of these grants. I said we need to try to approve this capital improvement plan. There's no, you don't have to commit to it. We just have to say that we're working towards this. But what they want to see is that we are committed and working towards the capital improvement plan. We're not continuing to, defer this maintenance because it's got to get done. It's got to get replaced. So in trying to set us up and make us as competitive as we can be in the future, is one of the reasons why we need the 15%. But whatever free monies that we can get, grants, that's going to affect the rates moving forward. But in the meantime, we can't, those are to be determined. We can't think that we're going to get this money. And it's a far stretch, like I said, from 18 months ago when they said there was no more money.
I got
So
a
the
question.
reason why I asked, I'm sorry, sir.
I got a question, and this is to help answer another question that was come up. When you put in your budget request this year, what was the amount, you remember?
In other words, how much have you cut out already, Mike?
No, I want to know what the amount we started with was.
Oh,
I think for my 3 plants, I want to say it was like $15 million.
All right. How much did you actually need?
It's all the things that got cut got deferred, with the exception of, like the equipment shelter, like I said.
And what you got was what was allocated. We took what you wanted, what you needed, and then we gave you a figure. Is that what you would say?
I mean, I've made cuts up to this point. So, for example, I've cut the UV system already. That was over $1 million. So to this point, we're stuck at this 15%. So if we move forward with the 15%, I can get that stuff. If we can't, then I'm going to continue to have to cut that other stuff. I think, Marty in engineering, he's cut as much as he could, and collections and distribution for public works. I mean, they have to have those cameras to operate and inspect, the collection system. So we wouldn't be asking them to cut anything else. I'm going to have to cut this stuff from the plants.
I asked Mike to go through every one of these line items because they are significant. As Councilwoman Jones mentioned, there is ARP that could solve this problem this year, but you're still kicking the can down the road, if you will, for the out-year requirements. And instead of needing 10% next year, you'll need 35%. And it just goes on. So the sooner you get after it, the better, because as I mentioned earlier, there's only so much money to go around at the state level.
Thank you, Mike.
Do you have any more discussion on questions, statements, or otherwise on the water sewer rate increase?
I have a statement. The people who are opposed to the rate increase, they'll be here in 2023. What are you going to do then? What plan of action do you have right now to take care of the water problem? Which I can tell you, you have absolutely none. Because 2023 brings about something that I won't be involved in, which is a municipal election. And you can say what you want to, you're playing to it. And that's all I got to say.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, I think that meant this issue is currently at a standstill. And we can move on to other items.
Okay, sir. But by the end of the night, hopefully we can come to some conclusion as to whether we're gonna use ARP to further fund these things or completely cut out Mike's CIP in this current year so that we don't spend more than we will get in revenue. I would like to mention one more piece before we get into the council members' issues. The Director of Travel and Tourism has requested additional funding from that fund balance of about $45,000, $46,000 to fund marketing, event support, travel in order to bring events to Goldsboro, and a pay increase for one of the employees. I did not approve those things in the manager's recommended budget because I didn't want to have to go to fund balance to do that. However, you may want to consider doing so to some degree. Each of the events, I sent council a review of the Raleigh Lax Fest that we held last year during COVID. That brought over $900,000 of economic impact to the city of Goldsboro. And the taxes off of that were about $70,000, $63,000 in sales tax and $7,000 in occupancy tax. So you're getting a pretty good return on your money for supporting those kind of events. And each one of those events probably cost $8,000 to $10,000, whether it's buying lighting for the fields, additional lighting, or having some kind of support at the facilities. So you may want to consider that. I don't know if, I don't see Ashlyn here. I don't know if she's online. She had a family issue. Ashlyn, are you available, or anybody else from the Travel and Tourism Department?
Tim, I'm here, it's Dustin.
Okay, Dustin is the president of the TDA, GTC. You want to come on in? I don't know if you want to make any comments or not.
Yeah,
Dustin, or
so-
if council would like to hear from.
Sure. So last year we had one Raleigh Lax Fest event. This year they're looking to bring a second, their boys and girls event. Projected to be the same amount of revenue brought in, or a little bit more now that we're a little bit out of COVID. So you're looking at, like Tim brought up, $70,000 per event. There's also a third lacrosse event we're looking at going after as well. USTA we need to put a bid on, which is an event that's held here a lot. There's the Quidditch event we're also going after, but we do have to invest some funds to get those events to come to us. They're everywhere in the states trying to compete to get these events, so we're competing with the Raleighs, the Charlottes. Once these events come, they love it here, but when they go away and they get wooed by someone else, they're not going to come back. They're going to be burned by us and have everyone else trying to do things for them. So a majority of those funds are going to go towards that piece. As Tim said, it will bring in, I think it was what, 63 and 7 was the split from last year. 63,000 of that is general funds. That's money that Travel and Tourism does not use, but funded solely by occupancy tax. So by spending 10, we'll get 7 of it back, and then the city council will get the 63,000 to use next year for any other project that you guys choose to use general funds for. So you have the ability to use occupancy tax, which are state mandated on how they can be used for the marketing of travel and tourism, and then reap general fund benefit because of those things as well.
I think we can add that the county spent, I think, 20,000 out of its 50,000 fund balance, so they have about 30 left, and the city has 170,000 left. So that is positive fund balance that can be used.
And the county is putting up another 20,000 again this year.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And I know Ashton spoke on this last time, but I don't know, how familiar are you with the Goldsboro Dealer alumni? And how much millions, many millions? I mean, I know she said she couldn't be biased toward a particular organization, but I hear you speak of Quidditch, and I'm a Harry Potter fan, but I think that Dealer alumni brings, what, I mean.
So one of the things that we do have in our our recommended budget for the tourism boards, which is actually a joint board between the county board and the city board because of long stuff with state legislation around that. But one of the things that we're looking at putting in is a grant programs for organizations like that to be able to apply for. We've had a small amount in the past where they're able to apply for it and request funds to help promote their events as long as they're generating room nights, which, I mean, everyone in City of Goldsboro knows that Diller Alumni definitely does that. And so what we want to do is try to grow that funds with some of this as well to be able to allow those types of organizations that are bringing in a lot of outside travel and people staying in our hotels and generating revenue for us on the occupancy tax side plus the sales tax side. So that is one of the plans to do with that as well.
So to further ask another question, is the outreach more for like the quiz and all that, was it more of a city outreach to them, or seemingly like what you just said, the dealer alumni would have to request or submit an application? I mean, it seems like there's preferential treatment in
The
the groups
sporting
that are
events,
selected.
when an event puts on, they request bids, and we bid on those events to be the host city for those activities. So that's what those funds are. We say, hey, we'll provide you with, so for Lax Fest, only a certain number of fields at the Bryan Multisport Complex are lit. They like to use all of the fields to be able to host their size of events, so we have to rent portable lighting for that types of thing. So we say, we will do these things to allow you to host your event here, and thus bring in that revenue for the city through tax. For other things where it's not bid-based, you know, if Dillard was doing a bid, then yeah, we'd be doing bid. What we're doing is saying for things that are happening in the community that don't go through that process, we want to create this assistance program for them so that they can continue to host their events as well.
So what would be a good deadline as far as them submitting the application? They normally have it during Memorial Day. So what would be the time frame?
In the past, we have done two. We've done a spring and a fall, and we put an announcement out through our email blast and through the city website, and we try to get it out there as best we can. I'm happy to, when we do that, make sure we reach out to you so you can pass that along as well. But you know, without this funding, because this funding is now cutting further than we were last year, we're gonna have to look at places to cut, and obviously assistance programs for things like that are gonna be, we've got to do the mission of the organization where the state legislates how we use these funds, so we have to market Wayne County, we have to market Goldsboro. These are things we want to continue doing because we know they provide value, but without this funding, we're gonna have to make cuts to things like that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So go over that one more time. The fund balance actually generates more funds.
So if we go into spending some of this funding so that we can do that, we want to spend about $40,000 out of the City of Goldsboro fund balance. There's two fund balances. There's the Wayne County fund balance, which is about $50,000 in it as of right now, and then there's 100 and some change, 110 in the fund balance now.
170.
170 on the city side. And so we would like to spend 40 out of that. The county is putting up 20 out of their fund balance as well so that we can get the budget back to flat from where we were the last year. And that will allow us to host those events, which will generate about $7,000 in occupancy tax per year, or per event. So we're looking at 3 events, that would be $21,000 that we would get back in for the 40, plus about $60,000-ish of sales tax revenue times 3, so $180,000 in sales tax revenue that we don't use. Travel and tourism funds runs solely on occupancy tax. We don't request general funds normally, except for special events. I think in the past for air show we've used some of that stuff, but normally we operate 100% out of occupancy tax. So we're looking at generating those funds, $21,000 to spend 40, but we realize that spending that 40 also generates other benefits for the city and county through sales tax.
So that's, were you done?
Only question I have, the county's putting 20 in, right?
The county's putting 20 in. So not to dig too deep, the city collects 5%, the county collects 1%, and that's why there's 2 separate fund balances. We're asking the city to put up 40, the county's putting up 20.
And their fence funds.
And they're, yes.
Okay.
And it's
The city-
occupancy tax fund, it's not general tax fund.
Of the city's 5%, 1% equivalent almost to the county's would be spent on marketing and that type of stuff. The other 4% or 80% of the occupancy tax that the city gets goes towards paying for the Maxwell Center and things like the Bryan Multisport Complex.
So I was just wondering, when you're talking about monies that we would get back, you're speaking about the Raleigh event, because that's one that we could get. The other ones we have to bid out, so it's no.
So the Raleigh event we hosted last year was the girls' event. They now want to bring the boys' event as well. They had such a good time. We did such a good job. They loved it here. All their patrons loved it here. They would like to come back. However, it's 2 separate events, so now we have to spend the money to support that event as well. So we're expecting that the revenues would be the same, if not higher, from that as well. And then we're trying to get a 3rd event because they heard that the other event had such a good time. So we're building this reputation of the Bryant Multisport Complex and being able to host these great lacrosse events along with other events that we do. There's a lot of soccer events we host there. And as all those things bring in hotel stays, because they book out every hotel, we get the occupancy tax from that to be able to reinvest back in. And then the sales tax is just to the general fund. And so with the travel and tourism and the board, we don't even look at sales tax revenue other than just being a benefit of hosting these events.
I got a question. Manager Salmon. Said it was a salary increase requested in travel and tourism.
You know, 5,000 of the 46,000, and I think the 40,000 would be just supporting the events and the marketing and such. So I would
Yes.
say, you know, I personally don't think it's worth coming out of fund balance to increase one employee's salary when we haven't done that for a lot of other employees.
That's my,
So, but I
that's
think
my
you
whole
should.
point.
I think you should consider what Dustin's asking for here is the 40,000, and maybe you give them all 40, or you give them 30, or you give them 20, or whatever council sees fit. And again, this is being requested. In a normal pre-COVID year, you would have had the revenue not to have to do this.
Any other comments, questions, statements, etc.? Thank you, Dustin. Thank you. We'll go around the table here and ask what your feelings are about giving the 40,000 or any portion thereof to travel and tourism. I'll start with you, Ms. Jones.
Ms. Jones would like to think about it more.
I don't have any problem with the 40,000, and simply because we've also got to get ready for Wings Over Wayne, which brings in a ton of money for us. So I'm not for the salary increase, but I don't have any problem with.
So the Wings Over Wayne won't happen until 2023, I think, so that's
Okay,
not a
that-
portion of this.
But we build up to that, if I remember correctly.
Then I don't know if we'll do any advertising in 21, 22 for that, but.
Or
I'm fine with 30.
30.
Yes, sir.
You got a 40 and a 30. Ms. Matthews?
I'm not in agreement with the 40 or providing any funding at this time for that.
I'm sorry.
I am not in agreement with the 40 or funding anything for those projects at this time.
Okay. So, Mr. Aycock?
Well, these are monies that are not generated by our citizens' tax dollars. These are generated by people coming into our city's tax dollars. And by them coming into our city, we generate revenue for both the businesses in Goldsboro and for us. And again, being with short-sightedness, I don't understand, since it's not costing our taxpayers anything, why you would be opposed to it. You know, the balance is there. It's going to get higher this year because the COVID's going to basically be over with, hopefully by September. And they can start generating that money again. And I'm willing to spend 40,000 to get back 80,000 any day. And I can't understand why. Of course, there's a lot of things I can't understand, so I'm not going to go any further.
Okay. I support the $40,000 contribution
Now, I want to add on to it with no salary increase.
with no salary increase. I agree.
So you have Mr. Polak, Councilman Polak, that was at 30. Councilman Polak, can you go up to 40, or would you like to?
Well, if it's not an expense to the community, the citizens, the residents, I'm fine with it. I didn't know if we would have to come out of our pocket, but since you clarified that, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, I'm fine with 40, but no salary increase.
No
as you said.
salary increase, that's fine.
So, Ms. Jones, you
Yeah,
agree
that's
with 40,
fine.
no salary
No-
increase?
No salary increase.
So we got 5 at 40 by my count. Is that right, Mr. Salmon?
Yes, sir. So we'll make that change.
Okay.
Now up to any issues council would like to discuss that were previously discussed, or additional ones?
I have one item, and that was just in your report, sir, that you said the consensus was reached that we would take out the Military Affairs Committee funds for each of our members. And it was my understanding that we did not deduct those funds, but we gave each council member the option of whether they wanted to accept that fund.
Yeah,
Or-
I
or
think
to
we need to have
utilize
a,
those
I think we need to
funds.
have a little further discussion on that as to what council would specifically like to have done.
And-
I mean, if you're all gonna pay for it yourselves, then that $2,100, 7 times 300, would not need to be budgeted. But if you want to budget it and then go from there, what, if an individual council member pays for their dues, then that would just go back into fund balance at the end of the year.
Well, my only point was, whether we pay for it or not, I don't want to send that negative message to either the base or the Chamber of Commerce. And that's a negative message to both of those entities. And who pays for it? We each get a bill every year for the MAC. We pay for it then. So I don't understand the problem, but I don't want to send a message to our Military Affairs Committee or the Chamber of Commerce that this city nor this council supports our efforts toward this base. I cannot agree with that.
Well, when I get my bill, I'll pay the $300 out of my pocket. I don't have any problems with that.
And I plan to pay the $300 out of mine.
That's all it was. And I'm really disappointed that you are pushing that non-support simply because I made the suggestion that if we wanted to be a part of the organization in light of trying to figure out where we could cut money, because I see the other departments are taking hits, we cut a little bit from the Friends of Seymour, this, that, and the third, and I see an organization that if we want to be a part of, the only suggestion was, would you be willing to pay your own way? Stop pushing the message that I, in particular, do not support this base. That is not it. I have said that since I took this seat. I said it before I took the seat. Stop pushing that message. I'm sitting here trying to be a good steward over this money because that is my responsibility. So I saw an item that we could remove and yet still be a part. Each one of you said that you still wanted to be a part of the organization. I didn't even say I wasn't going to be a part. But if I want to be a part, I'm also willing to pay my $300, just like I'm willing to pay my $25 to be a part of the Mental Health Association, because I haven't heard either of you say that that would send a negative message, and we fund them. We give them funding as an agency.
My point is, I'm not willing to send that message to the base nor to the Chamber of Commerce. Whether we pay it or not makes no difference.
So would you
I'm willing to
agree?
pay mine. I'm not pointing at you.
It's very clear though. Would you agree
It is
that
not
us
clear.
still being members and paying our $300 is still being a part? We're still supported. To me, it sends an even greater message that I have to come out of my pocket to pay $300 instead of it being given to me. To me, that sends an even bigger message, a more positive message that I say, hey, I'm still willing to support, but I'm willing to support from my own monies. Than allowing our taxpayers to pay for us to sit on a board that we could pay for ourselves.
I'm just making my point, and I'm making the, you have
Well, I
your
want you to
point, and
stop
I've
making
got
the
my
point that I don't support them. You can make all the points you want, but I'm telling you right here now, that is not the message that I'm sending, and that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, well taken.
Thank you.
I'm going to speak and say that, as I said earlier, I've gotten conversations with various people on various dates, various media, or various methods, person, phone, whatever. I've read news articles, local publications that spoke of this situation. And you're right, whomever says, and I'm not going to say any names here because there seems to be a very sensitivity to insinuations about people. The perception is that I heard is that you are not really willing to support, or let me back up. you're sending the wrong signals or the wrong message or the wrong perception when this city that has a $68 million budget is not willing to spend 1/3 of 1% of that budget for its members to belong to the military affairs organization. I said it last week, and I'm saying it again. I think that's a bad mistake, folks. I really do. All of us sitting around this council can pay it if we want to. It's not even one paycheck. So it's not a matter of money. It's the image that we are sending to the MAC and to Seymour Johnson, who happens to be one of the largest employers in this area, the second highest economic driver in this county. People that we cherish and appreciate day in and day out, and recognize the value that they contribute to this community. And I'll tell you something, we can take it off the take it out of the budget if that's the consensus. But I tell you, you're making a big mistake.
How would this be, Catherine, and I have to ask you, that you send them $2,100 and then we pay the city $300 each? Would that work?
You certainly could do it. It's another alternative revenue source. So absolutely could do that.
And would anybody be opposed to that?
We get a bill anyway,
Yeah.
so we pay the bill, and the bill just go to the city. We put our check to the city. We're billed either way.
We would just need to.
I think that's
That's good. That's a good idea.
that does not change the image. We're just passing money through.
That'll work.
I disagree.
That's all I'm asking.
I disagree, because they'll be getting a check from the city of Goldsboro, which they've always gotten.
Why don't we just get?
And whether or not they know that we pay $300 or that the city paid the $300, that should make absolutely no difference. And I'm tired of hearing, all this bull crap, and I hate to say it, I'm tired of listening to it. I'm tired of listening to this whole budget garbage, because we're not going to come to a consensus on the sewer and water bill. I say we just tell the finance director to assume 0% increase, and let's move on. I hate to get angry, and you don't see me get that way very often.
Well, the way I get the feeling here, that item is coming off the budget.
What?
Okay, I think you just said pay this.
I think like Mr. Acock said, if they don't see, as long as they get their check, we pay our, like I said, I was the first one to even say I would pay the $300 because I'm on the board myself. And I mean, I'm passionate about that board, and I was willing to do that. And I think a few others followed suit to that. But as long as, like I said, if however they handle it in finance, if they deduct it out of our stipend or whatever, however they do it, we just come give them a check. As long as they know we're in support of them and we pay, then that's my thing. They don't know who. I don't think
So
they would know.
if I could
Yeah.
restate, then you're gonna keep it in the budget.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Keep it as a line item,
Right.
but
Line
we're just
item in the
responsible
budget.
if we want to be
Just goes back in the
participants.
fund.
Right.
Yeah, when I
You
was
just write a
asked,
check to the city.
Just write a check.
Or take it out of your pay.
Exactly.
when I was asked, I said that I would agree to pay it, along with, Polak. Everybody basically said that they didn't mind paying the $350.
You can keep it in the budget, but I will not, don't bill me. I'll pay the MAC direct.
Okay. I think we have a consensus on that.
Anyone else want to bring up another subject?
I have a question. So are we with the allocations on the nonprofits? we're straight as far as, we all agreed as
What
far
I
as.
understood is
distrib-
that council had a consensus that we would delete the Waynesboro part for $18,000 and
Yes,
spread
sir.
it evenly amongst the
What's
others.
everybody else, so we,
That's my
okay.
understanding.
Yeah.
Any other issue?
I have a question. On page 175, for the downtown development, there's a description item. That says,
Can we pull that up? Laura or Brad? Some of the,
forgive me guys, it's actually on 178. And where it says downtown projects, it says one, the leasing public art for Center Street, and we see that down there, so. And it says 20,000, and then it says Wi-Fi for Center Street 15, and I see the manager, you recommended 20. So is that giving 10 to the leasing and 10 to the Wi-Fi, or how is that?
it's the artwork, ma'am.
So no Wi-Fi.
Correct. This is South Center Street, so this would be extending Wi-Fi down where there's no buildings.
But where there's places for people to sit.
Correct. Or they could sit downtown where there is Wi-Fi. My thought was, is it worth, given how close the budget is, to put Wi-Fi down there on the far end until we get actually buildings down there?
Well, when we had kids who needed it, who needed Wi-Fi at a time where we did not expect it, I see that as a value. I don't see the art as more valuable than the Wi-Fi personally. So that is something I want us to consider. I know this is a contract that we're in with the public art, and don't get me wrong, there's a couple pieces that I really, really like down there, but when it comes to what do we choose, you know, we don't know what's gonna happen with the pandemic. We all like to say we're at the end of it. We don't know how it's gonna swing or where it's gonna go. Our kids were completely displaced. Some of our kids didn't have access to Wi-Fi, and those park and learns were really valuable. Wi-Fi was really valuable for some of our kids, and so what do?
Well, you weren't on the council when they first started doing the public art. And what it was the Arts Council would send a recommendation of 7, 8, 10 art pieces and want the council to choose whichever one we wanted. Well, I think the majority of us at that time looked at them and said, we don't like any of them. And we said, let's turn it all over to the Arts Council. And to be quite honest with you, I've seen maybe 2 in all those years that I thought was art. I mean, at one time, here on Center Street, we had some steel beams that I thought a building had crashed or something and then painted it. I mean, how it was art, but I'm not that cultured. But
What? And how much do we spend on those, or I'm trying to look for the line item as far as the,
It's on 178, it's line item 4991. It says leasing public art for Center Street to include 9 pieces and crane rental and plaques at 20,000.
okay. And how often do we change those around? Like
2 years.
Once a year.
once a year? Because I know I've spoken with Ms. Georgia at the Arts Council, and we came up with a solution. Maybe we could have a lottery, and maybe some of these structures could be commissioned through the Arts Council with local talent and be permanently affixed and save the city money. Like I said, I understand everybody wants the aesthetics to change from time to time, but I think in the long run, if we invested in something that was permanently affixed, we wouldn't run into that 20,000 per year. We'd eventually have stock in our own community by showing local artwork and save that cost. I mean, that's just something down the road that I would like to see, because I'm in favor of the dinosaurs they had downtown. I like the T-Rex and all that, but they got rid of them. I was like, man, I thought that thing was gonna stay there, but
we weren't charged
but-
anything for those types.
oh really? And see, I would like to go, back to something like that,
Benton Fabrication.
That's right, out there
581.
towards Nahunta.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Venus flytrap was probably the
Yeah, that was
most,
Prettiest one we ever did.
glass.
We could take it out of this year's budget, but if we take it out and then put it next year, but we
Right.
get out of the sequence, that's what
Right.
I worry about. And, if we're gonna do that, that's probably an item for next year.
Next year, that's what I'm referring to, next year.
That's what I'm saying, for the next budget.
Right.
I think that would be, I'm sure they have the wheels running.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like Gene, I have, all my taste is in my mouth.
Mhm.
Would you mind hearing from our downtown development director?
Oh, yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for giving everybody a chance to share our budget requests. I know it's been a very difficult year, of course. I just want to make a recommendation about the Wi-Fi. I do think it's an important addition to downtown. Not only do a lot of people access Wi-Fi downtown, they utilize those last 2 blocks, but we're also hoping to attract more development, specifically residential development on that the last 2 blocks of South Center Street. I would recommend that we move some things around in our municipal service district budget and fund the Wi-Fi out of that budget and keep the art. I really do feel like art is a traffic generator, a tourism generator. It's uniquely situated to be accessible to everyone. It makes unique art accessible to people on a daily basis where everyone might not have access to unique art on a regular basis. We do change it out on an annual basis to answer your question, Councilman Pollack. We invite the community to be a part of that process. We have about 20 members on our steering committee that only meets once to determine their choices on those. Gene, I know they're not your favorite, but we do allow the public to share their input and help select those pieces. It really does bring the community together. I do love the idea of working with the Arts Council and maybe selecting one piece to commission. I do want you to take into account, though, that they are very expensive.
Okay.
You mentioned the Venus flytrap. To purchase that was actually $40,000. So we are getting 9 pieces and the installation of those for $20,000. And it does make a tremendous impact on South Center Street. I can't tell you how many people take their pictures for prom, graduation. If you drive down right now, I guarantee you'll see people circling around Center Street to take that in. It adds to the appeal, and then you have to ask yourselves, if we take that away, what do we put there for a year? That's going to be another expense that we have to think about. So I just want to make that recommendation for your consideration.
That sounds good.
So Aaron, where are you gonna cut it from?
We have an incentive line item for $15,000. We also have $20,000 for beautification and MSD. So I think between those two, we could take that $15,000 out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
anything else?
So is council in agreement with doing that?
Yes.
Putting the Wi-Fi in for 10,000
Yes.
and taking it out of one of the other 2 line items? Okay, we'll work that.
Let's say, Ms. Jones,
I said yes.
put the
Yes, I
10,000 in
agree
for the
with
Wi-Fi?
Yes.
It's 15, according to
Is
this.
it 15?
Or-
Yes, it's 15. I
Okay.
see it now.
Is
How
that
many
correct?
papers?
It's 15.
That was the estimate I was given from IT.
Okay, 15K.
That's top to bottom.
Ms. Matthews?
Okay.
Was that a yes?
I said, okay.
Okay. Mr. Acock?
Yes.
Okay. Any other item that you want to speak to about in the budget? Anyone?
So I think we need to get back to the utility rate then and determine, is there concurrence that we're gonna go with 0%? And then do you want to use the ARP to fund the CIP in FY 21-22? Or do you not want to do any of that or a portion of that? Or what direction do we have for finalizing the budget ordinance?
I mean, we come to a dead, you know, we're 3-3. That's not gonna change. So we're gonna have to go with 0 and use the ARP, in my opinion, to finance the items in 21, 22.
Well, I don't really wanna make a determination on that funding just yet, because I was also in that last meeting with the LGC and the county, and we were talking about that grant, for them to do a study. So I would like to see the results of that study, from there before, because we have time to decide that, right? Or no? We don't have to decide where
The
we
study is
spend-
gonna look at the systems from Fremont, Eureka into Fremont, Pikeville, Mount Olive, and within the city, whatever portion of our infrastructure is fed by those systems. It's not gonna do an entire study of our city systems. But even if it did, we know what our current problems are. And Mike has presented you that information. So we either take care of it in our budget or we don't.
Plus, that study may not even be completed for another 6 months,
That's probably, yes, sir.
so.
Can we apply any of the ARP funds?
Yes, you can apply, and Catherine, you can back me up on this, but I mean, it goes to the infrastructure. Most of it anyway. I'm not sure that one of those vehicles or not would be covered, but when you're replacing big generators and such and doing our own study, I think that would qualify.
Especially the generators and transfer switches, we've got to get those.
But what I'm saying is, we can make a determination on whether we're gonna do the increase without designating where to put that money right now. Or you're trying to lump it all in one?
Well, I'm just, either you take care of what's been forwarded as a CIP item right now for FY 21-22, or you don't. And if you don't, you could come back and do a budget amendment later on and continue to wait for that information you're looking for. Is that correct, Catherine? And so when we write a letter to the LGC explaining this, that will be part of the explanation, is you did a 3% tax rate increase to increase your general fund balance, but when it came to the utility fund, we decided to wait for ARP and see what would happen.
Is that satisfactory with the council?
We're stalemated, we don't have any choice.
I'm in agreement with the 0% increase, and utilizing the 1.7 for infrastructure. We need to do that.
Your 1.7 is used for the ops.
Yes, sir.
There's 2.7 left of the 4.4 we'll get this year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you use the 2.7, you could use that to completely fund the projects Mike listed there. Can I get that pulled back up, please, Fred? I got it. So council would have to decide if you want to designate that ARP now or not, because we're going to write the budget ordinance off of what you direct us to do.
My recommendation is to use the ARP.
So we've got a recommendation to use ARP funds for that. How about you?
I agree. Use ARP, take our chances.
We're 4 months out possibly from hurricane season. With that transfer switch and generator situation, that's what bothers me, because I was on the boats when the fire department had to take them out and pump water out. So yeah, not raising the increase in the utilities at all, but utilizing that money for infrastructure.
Ms. Jones, you concur?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I concur with it.
Okay. So we have a majority for that.
Okay. Any other item? Okay, before we adjourn, we were scheduled to address the budget and hopefully vote on it on the 21st, but I'm not sure, Catherine, that you will be ready. You may be, but aside from that, Mr. Pollock has asked that we change that portion of the schedule. You want to speak?
Yes, sir. Friday, I have legal matter out of state and will not be back until, it's supposed to be next week, but I want my vote. So I was wanting to recommend if we could have a brief meeting or whatever we need to do, reconvene on that Friday, if at all possible, to give enough time over the weekend. And I hate to be the one to do this, but since we don't have the process where my vote will be counted, I would like to ask if we could meet Friday briefly, since we've gone over the main things.
Which date? Is it this Friday or the following Friday?
The Friday of the 21st, which will be the 26th.
The 26th, that's
Would that be-
awful late.
Would that be?
The 25th.
It's the
25th.
25th.
Would that give you enough time, Catherine?
Since we kind of talked about the major, we've come to,
So it sounds like we kind of have a consensus now about
Yeah.
where we're going.
Right.
And you are not available on the 18th, this coming Friday?
No, ma'am.
You're not, okay.
Oh, yeah, this is coming Friday. Yes, ma'am.
You are
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
okay. The only thing that I would say is the only caveat, I told you had till June 30 at midnight. Well, the only caveat is we have to do payroll on the 28th of June, which is for the new fiscal year. If we wait until the 25th to do your vote, I'm in Plan B because we have to pay employees on June 30th because that's the last day we have appropriations, because I have a lot I have to do to get the budget rolled over so that people can do their payroll. So the only thing I would say is you don't need to worry about the work on our side. We can get it done. We'll pay employees 2 days earlier. But I was going to say, if it's possible to reconvene Friday, it'll be a lot, but I may be able to, there's a real good chance because I've got concurrence here that I could get the budget ordinance done for you guys to vote on Friday the 18th.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay,
yeah,
if that
it's fine.
works for
It's-
all the other
it's-
council members. I mean, I don't know if that's putting you
Can we
in.
do it telephonically? Can you poll telephonically?
Gosh, we need a Ron. That's a Ron question.
You can't meet on Friday, the 18th?
I can.
You can?
I mean, I can. I could be there. I was just thinking if we could do it telephonically. Or
Why don't we just meet at 3 o'clock and take care of the issue?
Okay.
And then Monday, we just have our regular meeting.
I can't be here on Friday the 18th. I can't be here. That's this Friday. No, I can't.
How about Thursday?
I'm fine for Thursday.
Can you be ready Thursday?
It'll be tight, but I can get it done, I
just
think.
can't do it the 18th.
You can't do
That's okay.
it Thursday or Friday.
I could do it early Thursday.
Early
Can
Thursday.
we meet? Can we meet for at 12 o'clock?
No.
So.
I could do it 12 o'clock. I can't do it after
Could do it 12.
You talking about Thursday?
Thursday.
Okay.
When do you leave, Councilman Polak?
I'll be leaving Sunday night.
How about Saturday?
Yeah. What time is your program on
The
Juneteenth?
program is 10 to 11:30, and he's doing the proclamation, Juneteenth proclamation.
What time?
Saturday's a no-go?
Whatever time you think would be, what do you say, about 11:30, 12? You think would be right down the street?
Yeah, we're right down the street.
You'll be gone though, once Mr. James.
I can't do Friday.
Okay.
Saturday you'll be gone
We're
too.
talking about
I'll be gone. I'll be gone all 3 of those days. And I've already paid a bunch of money.
Was Tuesday, you be gone all next week till Friday, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, we can do next Friday, and like I said, I'll
That's great.
have a meeting with department heads, and we'll just go into our Plan B to, get payroll done so we can pay employees on June the 30th instead of July the 2nd. So, because, I mean, it just sounds like we're just having an issue. And it will rush me trying to get all this done, and I've got a ton of agenda items to go out as well. So, I mean, we can do June the 25th. You just let me know what time.
But before we do that, before you have to switch all that around, can we just talk to Ron tomorrow to see if we can phone in, to see if that's an option to get it done? So you don't have to switch everything, if we can ask him tomorrow.
proxy? I should be able to do a proxy, shouldn't
Well, I'm saying, let's talk to Ron to see what Ron says, and then we can make a decision once we get his information.
Perfectly fine. Yeah, just, definitely talk with Ron, and then you all let me know.
Are you gonna do that?
Yes.
Okay.
I could do a proxy.
Okay, okay, so we are going to have a meeting on the 21st, for sure, that will be the work and a business session of the meeting as scheduled. We will not have the budget portion of that meeting. Is that what I'm hearing?
But we'll
I'm only
do the-
talking about
we'll-
the 21st now.
We'll do the budget this Friday.
I
via
just want to
phone-in?
clarify one thing at a time.
Okay.
So we will have a budget meeting this coming Friday, time to be determined.
I
That's what
thought
I'm
Bill
hearing.
said he couldn't be there.
But we'll check the phone in. If he can't phone in, then we're gonna have to do it on the 25th, right?
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Everybody understand,
Yes, sir.
please.
Yes.
Okay, can we,
5 o'clock on the 21st,
normal council meeting.
normal council meeting.
And budget meeting on Friday, the 18th. At what
18th,
time?
Time to be determined.
Can we come up with a time now?
Councilman Broadway, what time do you leave on Friday?
I leave on Thursday.
Oh, Thursday. Oh.
The issue is about him being able to phone in.
I just have to do that. I have,
Oh, it's fine. People have
It's
their
okay.
life. People have to live. We understand.
I have to do that. And, but hopefully I could do it by telephone.
We just need to find the optimal time to do that. What would be the best time for you or anybody else on Friday, this Friday?
Okay, I can either recess this meeting to Friday, or in the absence of not knowing what it is, I'll end this meeting. There being nothing else to discuss, can I have a motion to close this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
Second.
all in favor?